Hello everyone and welcome to a really spectacular game from round 2 of the FIDE World Cup that's currently being played in Russia. It's Daniil Dubov versus Vladimir Malakhov, and it's really a game that will that will make you want to play chess right away after you see it. It's a work of art actually, and a lot of time when we have Dubov playing, he will create these positions that are simply impossible to analyze. Like this video, there will be no pause the video moment because every position here, like any move can be a pause the video moment, but you'll see what I mean by this. And I've taken only a handful of variations that I thought were really exciting and that you might enjoy, and we're gonna explore some of them. So this game, it's really like it's hard to put words to it. It's like listening to maybe Bach music performed very well while being baited in, I don't know, maybe some rosemary and lemon and some maybe peppermint, or I don't know, but it's like that. So without further ado, let's check it out and see what this is all about. So Daniil with the white pieces opens with d4. We have d5 by Malakhov, c4, we have c6 going for the Slav defense, knight to f3, knight to f6, and knight to c3. And here we have a6, also known as the chameleon variation. We have g3 now, Dubov prepares the fianchetto his light square bishop, and d captures on c4. So this is all very standard. At some point, black may or may not play something like b5 to try and solidify his position on the queen side, but that never really works out as intended. We have bishop to g2, g6 now, black also wants to fianchetto his bishop, and now we have castles, bishop to g7, and e4 now grabbing more space in the center. We have castles by black, and now there is a game in the database where white played a4. I mean, who wouldn't? You want to challenge black's idea of playing b5, but here Dubov ignores this, and here he plays queen to e2, making it that already as of move 9 we have a completely new game. So black of course takes this opportunity to advance his pawn to b5, now defending his c4 pawn, and only now Dubov advances his pawn on a4, not to prevent b5, but rather to challenge b5. So black advances his pawn to b4, attacks Dubov's knight here, and now knight back to d1. But now the c4 pawn is under attack, and there is no good way of defending this pawn. So here we have a5 now, defending the b4 pawn, and really just making room for his bishop on a6. So indirectly you are defending it, so if you capture now bishop to a6, we'll just win the exchange. So instead, rook to e1 first, now getting ready to pick up the pawn here, and now rook to e1, and now a5. Sorry, and now bishop to a6 as planned. So now the pawn is very well defended here, but now we have e5, just attacking this pawn, attacking the knight. And now what do you do here? Well, there's a question: do you go here, or do you advance the pawn to c3, just attacking the queen? And it's a very interesting line. For example, if c3, we can move the queen, now c captures on b2, bishop captures, and now play knight to d5, but it's almost as if you've helped white to develop instead of maybe hindered his development. You can go e6 right away, you can bring the rook to c1. It's a very nice position for white. So after this e5, black plays knight to d5 right away, and here e6 now. Asking black, what do you want to do here? So you definitely don't want to capture here. The question is whether you want to advance the pawn to f6 or all the way to f5. Black advances it all the way to f5, and now knight to e5. So it's a very tricky knight. You never want to capture this because your dark square bishop is basically half of your defenses here. So here, rook to f6, now getting ready for knight to f7, so the rook will be ready here, and you want to challenge this pawn. So rook will come here, queen can come here, we can maybe attack it again, maybe we can play knight c7, pile up on this pawn, because we really want to get rid of this pawn. And while white could capture on c4, it's definitely an option, Dubov doesn't bother himself with this, he just goes knight to f7. So he attacks the queen, queen to c8, now also black is attacking this pawn twice, but it's also defended twice, so it's not a problem. And now Dubov could, try to play this in a variety of ways. He could go bishop to h6, he could go knight to h6 check, but he plays a move that, a lot of people would not even consider, and that's this is where the fun really starts. He plays knight to e3, and now his queen and rook are no longer guarding this pawn, and he challenges black to capture it. Are you going to capture this pawn? And black says, all right, I don't really have any other options. I will have to capture this pawn. Now there's a double attack here on d5. If I allow this, captures, not that, but if I allow captures, and bishop captures, could be could be problematic for me. So black accepts the challenge. He plays rook captures on e6, and now, well, now comes knight to g5, attacking the rook and asking, what do you want to play here? So bringing the rook back to f6 doesn't really work because we already said knight captures and bishop captures will win the rook here on a8, so that's out of the question. One thing you could do is play rook to d6, but this is also dead loss for black, and it's just amazing at what would happen here. So most of the these ideas that we'll explore in this game never actually happened over the board, but such is the case with every great game. So knight captures on d5, c captures, now queen captures on e7, attacking the rook here. If the rook moves, of course, bishop captures on d5. We also have access to this square, but another thing we're threatening, for example, if queen d7 just defends the rook, we're threatening queen e8 check. The knight covers f7, so this is a huge problem for black. For example, captures, you have to block with bishop to f8, only move, and now bishop to f4, and now the bishop pair is definitely fully operational. Let's say the rook moves, you kind of have to keep an eye on this pawn, but now knight to e6, and now there's a double attack on the bishop here, and now the only way to defend is to block is to help out with the defense of the bishop, but now we simply capture. Knight captures, rook captures, or we don't even have to capture with the rook. We can first play bishop captures on d5 to make sure we grab this one, and now it's all over. You could even run into king h8, bishop to e5, checkmate. So there's even that on the board. So after knight to g5, black decides that, okay, maybe rook to d6 isn't the right course of action. I could capture here. I've already grabbed the pawn, so I might as well give up the exchange. But here, black decides for c3. And it's a move that will be played at some point, so you might as well play it right away. So queen to c2, and now again, what do you play? The rook is still under attack, so you could move the rook. Then we play queen to b3. Now the knight cannot move as the king is here, and you might play e6. So this is a position that could occur over the board, and then white just continues in a lot of ways. You can capture here, you can bring the knight to c4, further harass the rook. It's a game that black could play, but it's a game that black chose not to play. So instead, after queen to c2, we have rook captures on e3. Black said, all right, I did grab a pawn, I'm going to give back some material, so he sacrifices the exchange. Bishop captures on e3, and now c captures on b2. We have queen captures on b2 by Dubov, and now knight to d7. So black really needs to start developing his pieces. We have rook a to c1, and now knight comes to b6. So what do you do here? Your a4 pawn is under attack. We have queen to b3, defending the pawn and also not allowing the knight to move. So here, bishop back to b7. Adding another defender here, and bishop to f4 now. And now this bishop is slowly but surely becoming a monster, as the knight cannot capture it. We have bishop to f6 now, making sure that if the bishop ever moves anywhere, you will lose the knight here. But now knight to e6. And again, what can black play? Well, you can't really capture it, even though there are two pieces now in front of the black king on this diagonal. If you go for something like knight captures on f4, then just g captures on f4, and this is simply unplayable. There's not much you can do here. For example, king h8, you unpin, d5 is coming, and it's just too ugly to even look at. So instead, after knight to e6, we have king to h8. Black gets away from this this diagonal, so now the knight can move. But now bishop to h6. Of course, you don't allow black to capture this bishop, and now you have full control of the g7 square, for example. So this bishop for the moment is stuck on f6, and the problem here is that black really has no move. There's no move you can play for black, and that's it's just an ugly position. So here black plays queen to g8. Now he puts the queen on this diagonal, but it doesn't really help. Here white just plays h4. He wants to play h5 and further weaken black's king side, because there is no move for black. If you tried to find an active move, there would be none. There's no good square for the rook. The queen can't really do anything. And the one active move that you might think you have, knight to c3, just falls to rook captures on c3. Captures and you lose a knight here. So two pieces for the rook, and your position is just ugly. There's nothing to play here. So here black played rook to b8, sort of a waiting move. And now Dubov increases the activity of his rooks. Rook to c5, now attacking the a5 pawn, as the rook is no longer defending it. So black brings the rook back, rook to a8, and now knight to g5. So asking, do you maybe want to capture this? I mean, it's a move you can play, but like I said, this bishop is really the only good defender of Black's king side. And now you're asking, okay, my knight moved from e6, no longer defending the d4 pawn. Do you maybe want to capture on d4? But this just falls apart. Incredibly. If bishop captures on d4, we give up the rook on c5. We just play rook captures on e7. And now, how do you defend the rook captures on h7? Well, one thing is you could capture the rook, but even that will not help you. If you capture the knight, then knight to f7 check, and you have to give up your queen. Queen captures, and now, okay, you might capture the rook, but if you capture the rook, you're getting checkmated. Bishop captures, queen delivers, checkmate. And if you don't, well, you're just down a queen with no compensation whatsoever. So after knight to g5, we have rook to a7, now preparing to move the bishop. Maybe the rook will help out with the defense of the 7th rank. And now rook back to c2. Now Dubov will double rooks on the e file. We have queen to e8. Queen to e8, you have to kind of bring the queen to help out with the defense here. So queen to e8, but you also just need a move. But now rook to e6. So again, with terrible threats here, there's not much for black to do here. Queen to d7 is a nice waiting move, but black decides that now is the time to capture the pawn. So bishop captures on d4, but now Dubov just says this still is not a problem. h5. He just continues with his plan. Let's attack the king side. Bishop goes back to f6. It kind of helps out with the defense of the g6 square, and also still guards the e7 pawn. So it's a nice defender. We have rook c to e2. Now Dubov doubles up on the e file, and again, there's no move here black can play. For example, if you play something like rook to a8, we just give up the rook here. Rook captures the bishop, and now after, let's say, knight captures, we play queen to e6. You could also play just knight f7 check, that also wins, but queen to e6 is just game over. There's nothing to be played here, and it's, well, just terrible. You could even run into something like bishop to c8 and queen captures here, and you're still getting checkmated. So that's kind of the idea of queen to e6, completely stifling black's position, but the real threat is always knight to f7 check, and there's no defense against this. So after rook c to e2, we have bishop captures on g5. Now black has to play something, and this knight is a menace here. On g5, so bishop captures, and now not capturing right away, but first queen to b2 check, which allows black to finally move this knight and block check. And now, how are you ever getting rid of this knight? Well, that's the beauty of this game. You don't have to. The queen will remain here for quite a long time. So bishop captures on g5, and now what do you play? Knight captures on a4. So you attack the queen once again, but the Dubov just plays the calm queen to a1, still not allowing this knight to move, and asking black, how are you defending this? This is attacked 3 times. Is there anything you can do here? So here, king to g8, getting off of this diagonal. So now knight captures rook is a threat. So Dubov just moves it. Rook to e1. And again, black is without a move. We have bishop to a6 now, trying to activate. Also, the rook is now helping out with the defense here, but still, it's attacked 3 times. Not a lot black can do about this. And here we have bishop captures on c6, just attacking the queen. Queen to d8, and now bishop captures on a4. So just grabbing material. There's nothing black can do. And even if you capture here, white will not capture back necessarily. White can play queen to e5, and it's a dead loss position for black. For example, bishop c8, you could attack something, but just h6. We threaten checkmate now, and if black defends, for example, bishop captures on e7, that's game over. Queen f7, rook to f6 now, for example, queen e8, and now we can play bishop captures on b4. Even ideas like these are in the position, and now there's no defense. You are threatening pretty much everything here, and of course, if captures, then a nice rook to f8 will be checkmate, as the pawn covers the g7 square. So after bishop captures on a4, we have queen to d5 now by Malakhov, and now comes bishop to c6, and it was in this position on move 40 after the time control has been reached that Dubov created this masterpiece, and well, black resigned, as there is simply nothing more to be done here. So an incredible game, and well, it's often that you will see games like this, but very often they come from Dubov, because there's it's like the old Stan Lee quote that they keep repeating: with great power comes great responsibility. Here Dubov has the great power to create such games, but he also takes his responsibility very seriously. So we can all be thankful for this, and we can only hope it continues for a very long time, so we can enjoy masterpieces like this one here. So yeah, outstanding game. And here you resign because you're down material, and there's really nothing you can do if you move the queen. You can't move the queen to a dark square, for example, queen here, then just bishop here. You lose the rook as well. If you move the queen somewhere like queen to d8, it doesn't really matter. We can just pick up d7 pawn. We can always do this. It doesn't really matter when we do it. Now let's say queen d2, but now we can play bishop to c5, attack the rook, and now our bishop pair will become fully operational. Let's say bishop c4 goes after the rook. We're going to play rook e8 check. And after king moves, we can play bishop captures on b4. So even this is in the position. You can't capture because the rook falls. If you do nothing, then the knight will fall because you've just eliminated the pawn that defends it. So it's, there's nothing to be done here. So I hope you agree with me that when I decided not to make any pause the video moments here, because every moment in this game could be a pause the video moment, so I thought we'd best just enjoy it. And I've tried to explore some of the more interesting lines, and I've chosen those that were kind of flashy because I know you guys enjoy those. But this game, to be fully analyzed, I think you'd require a few hours, and you could even make a series, a Netflix series about this game, just in 8 parts, for example. But yeah, enough being said. I really hope you guys enjoyed this one. When I saw the final position, I was like, yeah, it's a fun position. But then when I saw the game, I was like, yeah, that's the good stuff. So yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. Impeccable stuff by Dubov. We'll see what happens in game 2, if Malakhov will be able to bounce back, or will Dubov go further into the FIDE World Cup. I would like to thank Tom Derilau, Vivek Patke, Deepak Madhapa, Michael Mooney, and Kim Long-yu for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FIDE World Cup, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.